What's up everyone? You join me and this awful piece of E46 M3 behind me. If you've been following recently, I bought this E46 M3 fairly cheap, so my thoughts were to sort of strip the car and sell most of the parts, and then S54 E30. So I've got an E30 sitting around which is prime for an S54 because it's an M10 car, and I wanted to sort of spice it up a little bit. My original intention was to do an M52 swap, but I've had one of those in the past and then this car came up for sale. So it just the stars aligned, I guess, if you want to think that way, of course. But basically, I want to remove the subframe from this car just to show you that a running driving car that's not necessarily making any noises or doesn't feel like there's any movement in it, the floor can still be cracked. And if you own an E46 M3, then the chances are you've possibly got some damage to your floor already if it hasn't been braced or plated in the correct way. But I'm not intending to fix this car, so I'm not really going to go over methods of repair, but what I am going to do is just show you that your boot floor is probably cracked. And if you follow this channel, you'll know I've gotten them all already, 46 M3 myself. The boot floor was actually changed at BMW I think about a year before I bought it, but the chances are mine's possibly cracked as well, so I may cause myself some anxiety too. So let's jump into it. So we'll just quickly address, obviously, if you haven't seen the video, the car's got no roof. We cut the roof off as a joke. Not everyone saw the funny side of it, but at the end of the day it's a donor car, so it doesn't really matter. It was getting cut up regardless. I didn't plan to sell the shell because of the cracked floor and there's bits of rust on it, and also the previous owner just had a really bad time with the car, and when I bought it I told him I was cutting it up, so it happened. I thought it was funny, and that's all that matters really, I guess. So the first issue, someone appears to have put these spline drive lug nuts on and then lost the spline drive. So fortunately I've got a high impact Allen key socket which just so happens to fit in if you hammer it a little bit. So we'll get the wheels off, get the car lifted up and start dropping the subframe. So if you think that those spline drive lock and wheel nuts are doing you any favours and you can just remove them with a 12mm Allen key, they're not really going to save your wheels, so don't bother. Right, so obviously if you're running with a complete car you're going to have to remove the exhaust. If you've got a standard exhaust, it's a bit of a shit job, to be honest. I've done it before and it's kind of tight to get to the exhaust hangers. So the exhaust was already off this car. If you watch the last video, I've sold it already. So there's a couple of other bits. You need to disconnect the trail arms at the front. There's a couple of under trays to take off, and then you've got ABS sensors, and you've got a brake pad wear sensor, and you want to take the shock off at the bottom, or if you want to just drop the shock, you're going to have to remove some interior inside and undo the top mount, but not really necessary at the minute. I'll probably just leave them on the shell and scrap it. So we'll probably speed this bit up because it might take a while. This video and your drink soon,
Nails done. I like the girls with their nails done. Girls with their nails done. I like the girls with their nails done.
So we've jumped forward a little bit because some of it's not actually relevant, because I've cut the brake lines, I've cut the handbrake cables. I couldn't really be bothered messing about because this is a scrap car. Obviously if it's your own car, you're going to take a bit of care. I'd say if you were going to do this at home or in a workshop of your own, it'd probably take a few hours, but the subframe's pretty much ready to come off now, so it's left on 2 bolts at the minute. I'm hoping to lower it down onto this drum here and sort of lift the shell back up again. Obviously if you're doing that at home, you'd probably have the car up on stands and maybe use a jack to lower the subframe down and pull it out. But obviously I finally have the luxury of this lift, which is very convenient. So fingers crossed it stays in place and everything goes well. So as you can see, the car's now sat in position. The bottom part of the diff is touching the oil drum, and I've also packed it up with a little piece of wood. I'm hoping it'll keep it square as it lifts back up, because 2 of the front mounts are actually studs, so I don't want it to hang up. This would be a little bit easier with 2 people, but it's still perfectly doable. Subframe off. I had a small issue with the lift. The rotator switch decided to stop working mid-lift, which is a little bit frustrating, but it's back in action now. So I'm going to get this thing out the way first, and then we'll focus on cleaning up the rough areas, but I'll show you them before I do so. This shell's not great, if I'm honest, so we'll continue with this. That's out the way, and we'll let the fun start now. So this is where you want to be checking. The cracks in the boot floor, I guess, is caused by movement in the subframe, which moves this post and fatigues the metal around it. So yes, it should have been designed a little bit better, and the use of solid bushes does sort of improve this because it moves less, but in reality you really need to be bracing this thing. The plates are a solution, but they're not sort of 100% solution. Most people will find that the plates do perfectly fine. However, there are things such as the Vince brace, and there's another brace you can buy which braces from above in the boot up to the rear triangle, but then obviously if you use the car on a daily basis, you're then losing your access from the boot to the inside of the car. Might bother some people, might not others. The plates also cover the rear mounts, which I'm not sure if I've seen any crack here before, but I'm pretty sure they do. And now for the memes. That is what you think it is. It's pretty bad. So I'm going to clean this thing up just for purpose of demonstration, but the shell's getting scrapped anyway. I mentioned at the start of the video that this car, I drove it around a little bit and it was not doing anything untoward. It wasn't making any noises, there was no creaking, there was no like harsh thumps or any movement or anything. So the reality is that your car could be like this, and sadly my car could also be like this. So it's probably less likely. I mean, my personal car, the boot floor was changed at BMW. However, they did slightly revise it, but it's not in no way fixed to the solution. So anyone who tells you that the 06 models and stuff, it's okay, you don't need to do anything, they're wrong. So it is what it is. So let's get this thing cleaned up and I can show you properly. Right, I want to be really clear when I say this, that I have not pried away at this. I haven't like pulled anything open or anything. All I've done is just clean it up a little bit to make it easier for people to see. So this is how somebody was actually driving the car. So it just shows that a small crack can spread, and then it starts to pull things out of shape, and then it's going to spread right across the floor, and then it's going to start pulling other spot welds apart. So the reality is that you shouldn't just ignore this, because a lot of people do, and a lot of people sort of dispel it as some sort of myth. It's absolutely not, and really, I mean, it could be pretty dangerous, I guess, if it pulls the whole panel away, but that's not that likely, but it will get the car out of shape. It's supposed to be a performance car of some sort, so if obviously you're going to be driving it properly, you don't want this sort of stuff, because I mean, it's really bad. So I wanted to make this video really just to inform people and show. I mean, I was stripping the car anyway, the subframe was coming off because someone wanted to buy it, and I thought it'd be a good time to show people, because I mean, imagine if you're driving around in this, imagine if you're taking this thing on track. Like, this is what some people are doing, so you really want to be looking at it. I mean, I wouldn't want this to put anyone off getting an E46 M3 because they're great cars, but really just make sure you get one that's either been done or properly looked at, because you don't really want to be dealing with this stuff. It's not cool. So as I said, I'd hope this had been of some value to some people. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you do all the YouTube stuff, the likes and comments, etc. I'd be interested to hear if anyone's had any horror stories with these, or maybe if you've got one that hasn't been checked and it's made you think twice about it. We've got a lot of stuff coming up. I'm going to be pulling the engine out of this car, as I mentioned. It's going in the E30, so yeah. And there's a few bits on my M3 as well. So I've got the coilovers to do still, which have been sat around for a long time. Number of reasons why, but I won't go into that now. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.